Hey everybody, it's the Trout, and welcome to another episode of the Trout Show. Thank you so much for stopping by. You know, I'm kind of a fan of bands that are what we call eclectic. You can't pigeonhole them in one particular genre. Can't say they're really blues, can't say they're alt pop, can't say they're pop, can't say they're indie. But they're different, and that's what I like about them. And the gentleman I interviewed on this episode, Nick Diaz, is the leader of such a band. The band is called Buenos Diaz. Music out of Austin. Now, Nick talks about his stance on the way they play their music, which is exactly what it is. You can't pinpoint him. They do blues, they do indie, they do alt pop, they do all sorts of things. But what caught my eye with Nick was the fact that he was doing a tune by Jimi Hendrix, Wind Cries Mary, on a live episode that he shot. And I said, ooh, this is kind of a cool band that I want to talk to. So we sit back and enjoy this one because this is a fact that you get to hear from a guy that's just not your normal performer. And he's been doing it for years. He's traveled to different cities he'll talk about. Been to New Orleans, New York, LA, and ended up in Austin, even though he's a Texas-born native, to figure out what direction his music's going to be, which is the word eclectic. So up next, Nick Diaz with Buenos Diaz, music out of Austin. That's next on The Trout Show. So where were you born?
I was born in Houston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just down the road. But I spent a lot of time outside of Texas. I ended up going to school in New Orleans, and that kind of got me out of the state when I was 18. And even going to school in New Orleans, I was really seeking out music-centric cities. Mm-hmm. And so I lived in New Orleans for about 7 years, and then I trekked on up to New York City and did that for about 6 years.
Yeah.
And then I went West Coast and did San Francisco for about a year before coming to Austin. So I spent some time outside of Texas as an adult.
When did the band Buenos Diaz start? When did you guys come together?
I actually started it when I was up in New York at the time. So okay. That was I was in New York from 06 to 12. And I kind of started
there for a while then, yeah.
Yeah, I lived there. I got my feet in there for sure. And I started the band around 2000, I think it was 2009 or 10. I started a version of it up there, and then just life changed, and I was deciding to make a move back to Texas. So when I came here, I kept it rolling. We came up with that name, like me and a buddy were hanging out late at night.
Very clever, though. It's very clever.
Yeah, it was solid. And it just kind of popped out of the air, and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm going to take that and run. And so I've had the band for over like 12 years, give or take. Wow. Yeah, I've had it for a long time now, and in different incarnations, and players have come and gone. I kind of call it a collective, really, because anyone that's passed the doors I can call, and they can kind of fall right back into place. And each one is a vibe. You know, the band changes, obviously, depending on the personnel. So for me, it's fun because I get to see how the different interpretation of the music and the songs, and I just let it kind of organically shift and move like that musically. You know, I work with this girl Dana here in town regularly. She plays upright a lot.
Yeah, I saw her. I was going to ask you about her because you got right now for the last stuff. There's 4 of you, right?
Yeah,
you and then Dana, and then the other gentleman plays guitar, then the drummer.
Yeah, correct.
So you play lead, then the other gentleman plays rhythm or plays with you, whatever. Yeah.
We swap off on lead and rhythms. Yeah, he's a great rhythm player. His name's Adam Johnson. He's a great younger guitar player here in town, and we're pretty good buds these days. And so he can handle the switching of rhythm and lead too. That's why I like that. Well,
and not everybody's a great rhythm player. You know,
for sure.
And the last band I was in, a good friend of mine I'd known for years, still know him. I asked him to join because he was such a great rhythm player, and then he played keys too. So where is Dana from? Because one of the things I started doing last year was interviewing more women in the music business, and I'm always intrigued by women that play bass.
Yeah. Dana's I mean, top notch. She's from Michigan originally. She studied up there because she has a background in classical upright. You know?
Okay.
And so then she moved down to Austin because she ended up getting her master's at UT.
So did you grow up playing blues? Did you like blues, or is it just something you like to play every once in a while? I mean,
No, I definitely have like a long history with the blues. It's where I started, I
Okay.
would say, as a player. Again, old school way. I mean, I grew up with a CD collection and just would dig in and learn from ear, hit and repeat on a bunch of different stuff. And a lot of classic blues. Of course, you kind of can't get away from Stevie Ray having his hand in there, just being from Texas.
Yep.
But he was the pipeline to the old guys for me.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I liked him, but I dug in and went to go find the Albert Collins and Albert
Mm.
King and
Hmm.
T-Bone Walker and all that stuff. And then being from Houston, there's a super rich cultural history of blues from Houston.
Yeah.
And I always mix them up. I think it's the third ward. I think is the mostly African
Yeah.
American neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's one of the wards, fifth or third,
Yeah.
I forget.
Yeah.
And I grew up like 2 exits down from there too, so I was like in the vicinity of it. And then once I started kind of making the hang, and I was like a teenager doing the sneaking into blues clubs just to listen and to get around it. I learned more and more, and then I learned more about the history of the Houston blues scene. So I've got definitely a deep connection with the blues just from being from Houston, and it's what I started out on.
So how is the crowd? I know obviously you play a lot different. How many times you gone now? This is your third year with Southwest. You're one of the people that were playing at one of the bigger stages.
Uh, I actually took a year off this year, but I've done it
Oh,
5 years
okay.
in a row. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I took a step back this year just because I've done it so many times, and
Yeah.
it I had a few gigs during that week, but they were more just my regular kind of work gigs that I do in town and stuff. And I did that on purpose, just for a number of reasons. One, the application was sitting in front of me, and I eventually sent it in, but I realized I sent it in past the deadline, and I was like, "You don't really want to do this year."
Yeah.
And it was fine because I've done it, and I've done it in so many ways. I've done it as a side guy. I've played for international artists. I've MD'd. I've had Buenos Diaz. We've played the Saxon Pub on Saturday night at the 10 p.m. slot for South by. Like, it was great, and I love it, and it's a really fun experience. But I just was kind of ready to take a step back, and it allowed me to go watch my friends play and be a participant as a spectator, which I had never really had the chance to do. So, but
That's a
I've done
little bit.
it so many
It's
years.
different, isn't it?
It's way
When
different.
you're a
It's a,
performer, you're all spending all your time getting ready to play.
Yeah, and it's like to not have to have that in the back of your head. It was just kind of, it's definitely to me a more enjoyable experience as a spectator versus a performer. Of course, it's prestigious, it's cool to play the fest, but it's like, man, to go watch these, like you were saying, it's like all these famous people around. There's all these cool bands, a variety of anything you want to see. There's tech everywhere, and there's just all this kind of like really forward movement happening, forward energy with the festival. So to check it out and not have to be somewhere or be in performing mode, it's kind of really nice.
What are you doing now? Are you recording, or tell me a little bit about what the direction of your Buenos Diaz, or you? What are you
Yeah,
planning on doing?
yeah. I'm always working. I'm definitely a little bit of a workaholic music, and I think you kind of have to be if you're trying to stay afloat as any kind of full-time artist.
Yeah.
It's just it's the nature of the biz. It always has been. It's very
Yeah.
demanding.
Yeah.
So right now, actually, funny that we were chatting about Antones and the Wind Cries Mary, because we played Antones a little while ago. I don't remember when, but we filmed it and taped it. So that's kind of where those videos come from. But there were a lot more songs because we taped the whole performance, but we didn't get them all filmed. But I'm going to put out a Live at Antone's record. So right
That's
now I'm in the
cool.
middle of, yeah, it's very cool. And it sounds good, actually. I was a little, I think you're a musician, you do a live recording, it's kind of, you listen back and you're always like, oh, but
Hmm.
it sounds good, actually. I was like, oh dang, we kind of nailed it. Okay, we're doing our thing.
Yeah, we
And
don't. You know what we do? We listen to the performance, not much the people, the quality. Then we listen to the performance
yeah,
and go, "You're like, did I do that right? Did the band sound right?" And then we go, "Okay, how's the recording?" That's the
yeah,
way we listen to it. Just like you
yeah,
said. Yeah.
yeah. But it all came out great. So I'm in the middle of mixing that. I handle a lot of producing. I've outsourced mixing, worked with producers and stuff, but I do it a lot too. So right now I'm working on the mixes of that record, and those live performances. And but I'm also working on another record. I'm always working on stuff. I've got stuff in the vault that's completed, and which is nice. Again, when you kind of touch back on the workaholic, or how much we have to put content out these days with
Hmm.
the internet and stuff.
Hmm.
I've always got stuff in the pipeline that's complete. And so like, at least I have content ready to release. I kind of am more on like timelining it out so that I just don't dump all this stuff and no one listens to
Oh
it,
yeah.
basically, you know?
Yeah.
So I've got some stuff in the vault that's done and that'll be coming out this year. I'm working on a new record, actually, tapping into the name Buenos Diaz. And I've been spending time in South America back and forth, and I'm writing a rock record in Spanish right now.
Oh, what country are you going to?
I've been going to Argentina.
Oh, Argentina.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've just found a lot of influence and inspiration, just tons of new. I mean, that country is huge, and it's like they have every single style of music that we have. It's just all in Spanish, you know.
Yeah.
Everything from indie pop to folk to jazz to rock to anything. And so, like, I've just found a lot of inspiration, and it actually kind of almost made Buenos Dias make a little more sense in my head because, like you said, it's a little hard to pigeonhole. But then when you check out artists down there, they're kind of the same way. They're just making music.
Yeah.
And it's almost funny because I think it's going to click a little better just because it'll have Spanish lyrics on it. It's going to make everybody be like, oh, it's a Spanish record. And they can just put it into that category, you know.
Well,
whereas like musically, I'm still doing the same thing.
Say real quick,
music.
I interviewed a gal in Mexico City.
Yeah.
And this has been quite a while back. And she had a studio. And they called the studio Nueva York because everybody wanted to go to their studio called New York in Mexico City.
Oh, cool.
And
that's funny.
she did both. You know, she did English. She was more popular in Mexico.
Yeah.
But you tap into the audience. And I have a question for you because I've always wondered when you write a song in Spanish, because when we write English, we always rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
They don't rhyme, do they? Because you can't really rhyme in Spanish, can you?
You can. Yeah, you can.
Can
Totally.
you really? Okay.
Yeah. Because, here's just a simple example. It's like, you know, if you have at the end of a word, it's feminine.
Right. Yeah.
But basically, you're kind of playing that game where you're connecting the end of the words.
Okay. Just like I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And or like escuché is like I heard, but then you can find another word that has that at the end, and it ends up lining up to rhyme.
Okay.
It's kind of wild. It's been a fun experiment and game for me too, because Spanish is my second language. So I've definitely at this point, like I've become a lot more fluent in spending time down there. But I've been going back and forth for about 2 years now, and so as the Spanish has improved, it's been a game because the lyrics I'm like translating, thinking in my head, and translating in English and words, and also then imagery and story, the whole thing. So it's been a fun exercise. It's been pretty cool. That's something else I'm working on right now. I'm working on that Spanish record. If I'm not on stage, I'm in my studio working most of the time. Like it's kind of the day job of just, I come here in the afternoons and I work. And if I got to run to a gig, either I don't come here or I would just run there right after being here. But I'm in here. My place is set up. It's got everything. It's got the drums and everything, and mics are set up 24/7. So it's like, it's a pretty, a nice workflow, and it's taken some time to get here, but it's great to have it, especially working on this new material too, because I just have everything at your fingertips, you know, your mad scientist thing, and pull it in. And it's like, I don't play the drums and stuff. I call the people that I work with to do a lot of that.
But you have it set up that you can record it. See, I don't have the room for it, and I have a friend of mine who's in Chattanooga. That's the one thing I'm missing is having a real drummer. And the rest of it I could do. I mean, obviously I like to have a better keyboard player, but that's all stuff I can kind of futz around myself.
Totally.
I assume that people come to you to record, or you produce other people's music all the time now?
Yeah, both. That's kind of been the beauty of this studio. I call my studio the Tone Shack. It's and I've had it. It's a funny little story. I used to live in this building. It's a small, like 500 square foot back granny flat.
Okay.
And my friend owns the front house, and I lived here for 5 years, kind of still getting music off the ground and everything, like when I was starting to become full time. And then it was always my plan to move out and keep this as the studio. And then the brakes, because of the pandemic, I put the brakes on, and then everything just lined up as soon as the doors to the world opened up again. And you know, I had a drum kit in storage. I had a Rhodes piano in the front house, and gear was kind of scattered. And then I moved out and I was able to pull it all in. And so now, I mean, I've recorded all kinds of stuff in here, from sending tracks to California to recording Alex Ruiz's record. He's the lead singer from Del Castillo. He wanted to do his record with me, and I've recorded other indie artists in town that were, they just heard what I did and they're like, man, I love what you do. Can I come? Can you record me? So yeah, and now I've been putting more time and muscle into pushing the studio too. Actually, when I was hanging out with all those guitar players last night, this guy comes up to me who I don't see that often, but we know each other through the scene. Yeah. And he's like, man, I hear you have a killer studio. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. You should come by sometime. So like the word's even getting out, by word of mouth now. So I love making records, and I'm a little selective. Like I want to work on cool stuff and with people that have ambition and want to do stuff. Like I just don't want to record someone that's going to waste time, because it can be tedious.
It's like this. So I've had people come to me and say, listen to my music. They see stuff online, the socials and stuff like that. And I got to a point where I can either be honest or just say I don't do it anymore, or I don't do it.
Sure.
Because I don't want to tear people up. And
I don't either.
You don't want to do that. But the reason why you and I are having this conversation, if I don't like your music, I'm not interviewing you. Because I had a PR company send me an email the other day and said, hey, would you mind interviewing? And I listened to her and I go, I haven't told them that yet, but no. If you're anybody any good, you know what quality is. Not that good. And I don't mind helping people out, but I think what you're doing is fun because you're exposed, but you obviously know what you're doing, or wouldn't there be all these people coming to you? And I think the producer is really, and I remember one time I was working with a band out of Utah and they said, can you come up and produce this? And I said, you're in Utah. Are you going to fly me up? They didn't understand what a producer really did.
Yeah.
And the drummer said, well, I don't want anybody to tell me how to play drums. And I said, that's not what a producer does. We're there to make you better.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have a talent, be able to work with people and get the best out of them without killing them. And there's an art to that. There really is an art to it.
And letting them fly and reeling it in gently, but just enough you're just guiding the ship when it needs to be guided. And that's not all the time. Sometimes they're doing great and you just let them go. And then sometimes, and we all need outside opinions because we all get tunnel vision when we're listening or really working on something. So like to have someone just be like, oh, check this out real quick. That's really helpful. I wish I had that a lot more. Sometimes when I'm working on my records, and it's like, thankfully things kind of land in the same place, but there isn't a moment that passes when I'm in here one day where I'm like, man, it'd be nice to bounce this off someone. And like, I just plow through, but that's a very helpful tool, to have extra ears in the room. Always. I always send the stuff out, even if I'm mixing it or whatever. I always master it and I send it to New York. I've got a guy that I know from when I used to live there, and he's top notch. And so like, I always get it out of my ears at some stage.
Yeah.
And you have to, I believe that, if you like mixing records, cool. I like mixing records. I don't like mastering records. So do the work that you like to do, because you can do it, but fresh ears are always needed on any project, like it just helps.
And you're 100% right, because I think that, and it's hard to find, you're fortunate to have people you can take it to that know what they're talking about. And, if you take it, my friends don't really listen to music that much. I have people that I know, but, I'm not going to ask I interviewed Walter Trout last year. I'm getting ready to talk to him again.
Nice.
I'm not going to send it to Walter and go, hey, Walter, do me a favor. He's not, I don't want to do that to him, because what's he going to do? He's already well known. He's not going to say something stupid like, man, it sucks, dude. It's just not going to do it. So you really need somebody, and I think that can listen to it and tell you what they think, just like my friend did. But the other part of it is you're right, because you start getting ear tunnel where you hear stuff. And then my last one I released, it took me about a year to do it all, because then I'd listen to it. I usually listen to a song about 2 or 3 weeks, keep hearing stuff. Oh, I need to add this, or I need to put that over there. It's too much. You know how it goes. Yeah. And then I take it outside and put it on my stupid phone to see what it sounds like, because this is what people will put it on. You're going to listen to a speaker that's half-inch big. How does it sound on that? And then you go, okay, how does it sound in my car? You have to go through all this nonsense.
All of it, yeah.
And because I told, when I sent out the last stuff, I sent it to my friend. He's a musician too, but he's a banker by trade. And I said, whatever you do, don't listen to this on a frickin' phone, unless you got earbuds, okay?
Yeah.
Put it on your stereo and crank it, because that's the way I hear it.
Yeah.
And you're right. But then if you listen to it enough, then you start going, Was that little ditty in there before? Because I didn't really hear that, and it's like, oh, I need to, I need to get rid of that or something like that. But I
Yeah,
think the great thing about writing music or making it is just that it is a talent you get. It's given to you because not everybody can do it. But also the fact that you start with nothing that's up here,
right.
and then somebody in Argentina is listening to it, or
Yeah.
somebody's, I got a thing from my podcast company that distributes it. How many countries my podcasts are heard in? It's like 50 or 60. I'm going like, who are these people?
Yeah.
Same with music.
Yeah.
And you
They're
bring
all,
up
and
an all. Go ahead.
people are looking for it. They're
Yeah.
they're they're looking for content and things that they like, you know.
Well, I think when you're doing the Spanish language music, you open yourself up to a brand new audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the funny thing is I've gotten asked a lot of times why I don't have any Spanish songs with the name Buenos Diaz, which to me I'm kind of like whatever. I mean, it's a rock and roll band. I can call it whatever I want. Um,
True.
but yeah, but just by actually, my friend asked me that question one time, and I was like, look, Spanish is my second language. It's like there's going to be a lot that has to go into me making a Spanish record. One,
Yeah.
I have to improve my Spanish and my comfort level of working with the language to create stories and lyrics. I got to be comfortable with that, and I want to do it for real because that's just how I've learned. Everything has been in the street learning. You know, like I didn't go to school for this. I didn't have teachers. It's like I went to New Orleans, I went to New York, and
Hmm.
learned how it sounded and how they did it there, and then just put it together. So that was actually part of my original, itch to go to South America, was to start that process. And sure enough, it's worked the way I thought it would have in my head, where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go down there, I'm gonna work on my language. I'll find inspiration through being in another culture in another part of the world,
Hmm.
and then it'll come together. And it did, because
Hmm.
music has just always kind of been that channel for me that I use it to write about things that I see, and try to talk about, that I see in the world and how people view things through their lenses and stuff. So it's been a fun process. I think it will open up a lot more listeners actually to what I do, and it'll even put them to enjoy the English stuff too. So I think I'm kind of landing in a place where musically those two worlds are going to kind of meet in the middle and do something cool.
I think too, Nick, is the fact that Anglos like me, I grew up on the conjunto, you know,
Right.
that's all I heard my whole life.
Sure.
And so when you hear, it's like the lady I interviewed in Mexico City, she was a pop singer.
Yeah.
And I started listening to, I knew some of the lyrics she was saying, but then I started listening to music. And I think
Yeah.
what you're going to find out is people go, well, that's a really cool tune. I may not know what you're saying, but I like the tune.
Right. Yeah.
And what I
And I
found
do,
out, no, go ahead.
and I do think this music does that. You mature, you grow every time you make a new record. You just know what you're doing. You've been in the studio before, and you know
Yeah,
how to use whatever it's a foundation. It's building blocks every time.
right.
So this record musically stands stronger than the stuff before, just because of time and experience. But then you put the the new language behind it and all of it, and you're totally right. The people that I have heard some samples, they've been like, "Well, that's like really good." It doesn't even matter that they don't know what I'm saying.
No,
Yeah.
no. And if you go to another country and they're playing English language music, they can repeat their lyrics, but they may not even know what they're saying.
Right. Yeah. They still sing
They're just
along though.
singing. They're singing along. I see this
Yeah.
all the time when these big famous artists are going somewhere and they're singing to a U2 song and they're like, do you know what they mean? No, I don't know. They're just, it's, saying, oh, okay, I
They're
got
singing the
you.
melody. Yeah.
They're singing a
Yeah.
melody. It doesn't matter.
Music is just powerful like that too. I really enjoy reading all kinds of music literature.
Hmm.
And recently I just read um, Susan Rogers' book, and Susan Rogers was one of Prince's engineers and
Ah,
producers.
okay.
And then she had success with him, but she went on, and she's a little older these days, but she went on, she has a PhD from, I forget where she went to school, but she has a PhD, and she's a professor at Berkeley now,
Mm.
and literally teaches like the psychology of music, and,
You're
and
talking
really
about the
dives in.
Berkeley, the School of Music. I assume that's what you're talking about. Yeah,
Berkeley is
okay, yeah,
right,
yeah.
right, yeah. And so this book like just really touches on the psychology of music and why we resonate with music, how we do, and the songs that we, and everyone is different and unique. Like you like this, I like that. this other person likes this from their childhood because of this moment. And it's like music just has that power to really kind of connect those receptors in your mind that, you know, it puts a timestamp on this moment in this memory, and that song goes to that moment in memory for you. And so we all like things differently. And I think that's amazing. I love that. And it's like, you just never know what people are going to enjoy or what they're going to like. More reason to just throw it against the wall, whatever you're making, and just make it happen. If you believe in it, just do it, you know? I'm always surprised when people come up and are familiar with what anything I'm doing. Honestly, it doesn't even matter. It was just like last night, like that guy was excited about my studio, which he's never even seen. And sure, a lot of the stuff that's released I've made here,
Sure.
or started here in some capacity, or something was done here for sure. But like, he wasn't talking about the music, he was talking about the space. And I was like, wow, I mean, how do you, like, you know, I don't even see this guy that often. We don't really talk that much. And he knew about it. So it's like, it's always surprising to me when someone finds out about something I've worked on. But that's why you throw it out there, because you never know who's watching. Someone is always watching, especially if you're, I mean, I do this full time. It's my life, my job, my art.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like somebody's watching somewhere, you know? And so, yeah, it's important to just, you know, have confidence and believe in yourself and do it.
What do you use for your DAW? Are you using Pro Tools or are you using Ableton? What do you use?
No, not at all. Are you familiar with Reaper?
Yes.
So I just started using that, like, I don't know, whenever I started making records 12, 14 years ago, and a friend hipped me onto it because it was free.
Yep.
Because they were the engineers that used to work for DigiDesign that ran Pro Tools, and they kind of did it as a protest because at that time, 10, 12 years ago, Pro Tools had a monopoly over everything.
And it was expensive, yeah.
It was expensive. So these guys are like, this isn't right. So they made Reaper. Funny enough, I've learned recently over the past couple of years, they use Reaper now to teach audio engineering at UT.
That's funny.
So it's kind of like moved up into the world. And you can use all of the plugins, UAD, Waves, anything you want with it. It's totally compatible. So yeah, I'm just kind of a surgeon with that these days because I've used it for over a decade. I've messed with Pro Tools. I've had it. I've used, I have Ableton. I don't use it a lot, but I have it. I know how to use it enough, but they're all the same at the end of the day when you're recording. I've spent a lot of time in Buenos Aires. I spent a week in Uruguay on one trip when I was there.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that was awesome, different and more mellow than Argentina. And then I've done trips up into the northern part. Let's see, I've been through 4 different provinces in the northern part around the Andes and the foothills of the Andes in Argentina. So I've been around a little bit around the country, and I love it all, man. I kind of can't get enough of it. I'm probably going to be going back in the summer, I think June, but in the summertime, I'll head back as well. It also gives me a breather.
Part of their country has the same, their winters are summer, I guess, part of it.
Yeah, I get a breather from the summer of the Texas summer.
Yeah, which we sucked last year. We know that. Hopefully,
oh God, it's been brutal. Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that you get to tour, I mean, not tour, but travel, that's kind of fun. And the fact that you get to speak the languages.
Yeah, during the pandemic as well, like we all ended up with time off. And then even when gigs came back, there was always this lull. It's like I would be busy and then bam, it's like there was no work. And that still happens in its way. I mean, it's more consistent having work regularly now. But I just made it a point, and I was finally at a place where I was like, you know what, I'm taking this time to myself because I work 24/7. So like I've just made it a point to, and it keeps me fresh, honestly. Like I leave, I don't take the guitar. I'm writing songs and ideas and stuff, but like I leave the tools behind. And so when I come home, everything's always real fresh again, and it keeps me, interested, and I still love playing music, because when it's your job, anything will become your job if you just do it and do it and do it,
Well, it's not a job if you're enjoying it. That's the difference.
It is. And true.
There are times my wife says, you don't have to go do an interview. And I said, yeah, I do. It's still part of I don't, it's not like I'm making thousands of dollars off this, but I feel like it's my job. The one thing I want to talk to you before I hang up though, what's your favorite, what do you usually play? What guitar do you play most of the time, your favorite one?
Oh, it was a good circle back around because you said you got the custom in the closet or whatever, the Les Paul.
It's over there.
I have a 335/63 custom shop reissue. And that's kind of number one these days. She's all black, beautiful.
It has gold plaque on it, has a gold pickups on it or not?
No, they're silver.
Silver, okay.
So silver hardware and black.
And
she's beautiful. And I have that. And then I have the first guitar I ever bought was like an old early 90s American Standard Strat. So those are kind of the two number ones that I bounce between. And I have other guitars, Tellys, and another 335 in the set, but those two are the main ones. And then on rig, I have a also early 90s Tweed Blues Deluxe 112. That's kind of the number one amp that can do everything. But then I have the 4x12 DeVille of the Tweed as well. So that'll be like big rig, big shows, whatever. Yeah. But then I've got these smaller Fenders too. I have a Pro Junior and also a Vibro Champ that I use those on gigs a lot. And it gives me all the crunch of tube tone, but the volume is, friendly to everyone. So I kind of bounce between that gear right now. And I got other stuff that depending on the gig, but those are the main rigs right now.
The thing is, it's changed so much because when I was young, when Marshall came out, we all went, "Oh my God!" Of course, back then they were like $2,000, would be like 20,000 now because we go like then high watt. And of course, Hendrix was playing Marshall, and then
totally
Pete Townsend started playing high watts and put all this power out and all that stuff. And you didn't have anything besides just push it out as much as you can. Yeah. And now because of the reinforcement, the sound reinforcement, you can do anything you want to because it's all as long as I can hear it. In my ear or my floor monitor, whatever comes out, I just let people mess with themselves. Like, here's where I'm going to go. You guys do what you got to do.
Yeah,
and that's why you can have a 112 on stage.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing with the smaller amps that I've gotten into using because there's always front of house. So, but and for me, it's been fun because I use a lot of the smaller amps to record because I can really dial in whatever fuzz or clean that I want. And but the fuzz on a smaller amp that's just totally broken up is unique. And I like that fuzz. And it's kind of hard to recreate with the bigger gear without killing someone and even with fuzz boxes and stuff. Yeah. So I'm also now trying to recreate some of the fuzz tones that I'm getting in the studio on the stage, which is a new game, a new territory. And it's not all about big, loud gear. You got to use smaller gear. So yeah, I'm always same thing. I'm experimenting with the live sound all the time. There isn't one, this is what I do. And I did that for a long time. Actually, I remember this, a friend asked me one time when I first moved to Austin and I had like Boss pedals. I still had the Tube Screamer. And he was like, let me ask you something. He was like, you're a killer guitar player. He is like, do you think Hendrix would still be using a Tube Screamer today if he were around? It's like he was always on the cutting edge of finding the newest, hottest thing. Yeah. And it was like the light bulb went off and I was like, oh, you're right. Why am I still using tubes? And then I went down a rabbit hole and got some cool stuff. And so now I still do that. I experiment with the amps and the tones and always just pushing the envelope,